Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Cutest Snowman number 2 and I'm going to be sipping on some hot cocoa. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, burnt umber, which I will call brown, Mars black, fire red, green oxide, chrome orange, and cobalt blue. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 10 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 1 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch up those sizes as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same kind of paints, and I'll even throw in the pencil for you, so that's all there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what I'm going to do for the first step is I'm going to be drawing an outline for the snowman. I'm going to be using my pencil. I'll give you a couple of markers. You can follow along with the markers and we'll have a cute shape for our snowman by the time we're done with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first put on the top section, or the head of my snowman. So I'm going to find the center point from left to right, somewhere around here, and center from top to bottom is somewhere about here, and you can just kind of eyeball where that is. And then I'm going to come down about 1 inch to 1.5 inches below that and make myself my first marker. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come straight up from that to about here. So this is about 1/3 of the way down my canvas, somewhere in through here. And then I'm going to make myself an oval. My oval is going to take up about 1/3 of the distance in the center. So you can kind of give yourself a couple of little markers on the side to give you a barrier to go. And then I'm going to go ahead and make myself a cute little oval. So my oval is going to be a little bit flatter on the top to account for maybe the hat squishing it down a little bit, but you could have yours perfectly round if you want to. It doesn't need to be. It's a snowball, and in my professional snowball making experience, there are no 2 snowballs alike in this world, so you can certainly have yours whatever shape you would like to. So that's going to be the shape of my head. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down from this center point about 2.5 to 3 inches, make myself another little marker. I'm going to put on the center section, which is going to be the arms. So I'm going to come up, I would say about halfway between this side marker and the bottom, somewhere in through this vicinity on both sides. That's where the shoulders are going to kind of come out. And then I'm going to bring this out in a little bit of a round type of motion and bring it down into this marker in through here, and do the same thing on the left hand side. So I'm having the arms pop out just a little bit further than the head, but not much, just a teeny tiny bit. It doesn't need to be much at all. These are going to represent the cute little shoulders of this snowman. So once I've got that, I'm going to separate the arms from the chest area. So I'm just going to come up in this little area like this, give myself a cute little shoulder, and then just bring this down to this center area. This is going to be where my little snowman hand is going to be, so somewhere in through here. And I'll do the same thing over on this side. Just give myself a cute little shoulder and then just bring this down in through here. And they don't have to be exactly the same. You could make yours look, you know, one's more skinnier than the other or poofier than the other. It's a snowman. They can be all different kinds of sizes. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the bottom portion of my snowman on. So I'm going to come directly down from the center, and I'm going to stop about maybe 2.5 inches from the bottom of my canvas. That's going to be as far down as I go. And then I'm going to have my snowman kind of tipped a little bit with the butt kind of out a little bit farther on this side. So I'm going to come down this arm probably to about right about here, and on the left hand side I'll come down to about the same height, and then when I go to round it, I'm going to round it out farther on this left hand side. So this one right here, I'll probably come about this far. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to kind of come down like this and then just round it. I'm going to have it pretty flat on the bottom of the snowball, as if it's kind of squished down to the bottom of the ground, something like this. And then on the left hand side, I'm going to have this kind of kicking way far out like this is the side of the butt that is just kind of sticking out, making our snowman look even cuter than it would traditionally. And then I'm going to put a couple of snowball feet on here. So somewhere down in through here, just going to give myself a couple of little round snowball feet. And of course, yours can be really big or really small. Whatever size snowball feet you want to put is totally fine. And then we are going to be utilizing our large brush for the next step. So once you've got your outline for your snowman on here, you can put your pencil away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting our background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are brown, black, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself like a medium, warm kind of gray color that we'll use as the background. So I've magically already mixed some of mine so you can see where I'm going. So this is the color that I'm going for. What I did was I used the majority of my brown. I did separate out some of my brown because I'm going to want to use that later. So you don't want to mix up all of your brown during this step. Just save a little bit for later. And then you can use the majority of your brown plus a little bit of black. The black can very easily take over, so you don't need a lot of black. And then a little bit of white. And then you just start mixing them together. You can always add more white to make it lighter, and you can always add more black to make it darker, but just start with a little bit of those two colors at a time because they can very easily take over. So that's a little dark, so I would go ahead and add a tiny bit more white just to make sure that I can get it in that lightness that I want it to be. And just know that these grays will turn a little bit darker when they dry. So as you're going through your mixing process, yeah, that's looking pretty good to me. So I'm just going to mix it all together now. As you're going through your mixing process, just plan for the fact that it'll get a little bit darker as it dries. And then once you've got the color that you desire, you can even test it out and, you know, put it on your canvas a little bit, let it dry and see if it's the right color for you. But once you've got that color that you want, you're just going to be painting in that entire background. So this is going to be the entire area around your snowman. You don't need any special brush stroke to get this paint on. It's just a matter of getting a nice coat along the outside area of your snowman. So if you bump into your pencil a little bit, don't worry about it. You'll be able to disguise that or reshape your snowman as we go through the process. So don't worry about, you know, the fact if you bump into it a little bit, that's totally okay. And because we're using white or a gray here, you should be able to get pretty good coverage with one coat. But if you're going through the process and you're like, oh, there's a couple of areas that look a little streaky to me, just let them dry and you can certainly just go back and add another layer on top of it. So go through the process, paint the entire outside with the gray color. And again, you can use any brush stroke you want, because once it's dry, it will, and you've got good coverage, you won't necessarily detect those brush strokes unless it's thin and streaky, and then in that case you might see them. But if you put 2 layers on in those areas where you can see the brush strokes, they will magically disappear for you. So I've got this area in through here, and I'm paying a little bit more attention as I'm going around the snowman. But once I get into this larger area up on the top and on the sides, you can really just have fun, kind of put the paint on in a pretty heavy manner and then just spread it around until you've got a nice coverage. And then we will be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this entire area covered in, again, if you want to do a second coat, feel free to do so. I might end up doing a second coat in some areas if I find any streakiness that occurs after it dries. And then we will wash and dry this large brush, and we'll get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are painting our snowman. I'm going to be using my large brush. The colors I'm using are white, brown, and blue. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to, in essence, be painting the entire snowman with white, and then I'm going to come in with the brown and the blue to give myself the shape or the contour shadows along or around each one of these objects. So I'll have darkness around the head, darkness in the little chest and around the arms, maybe in the hands, around this object, and around the balls of the feet. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of white paint on my brush. You don't need a lot. This in essence is just really to get the party started and to get the edges kind of nice and soft and make sure that you're starting to intermingle the snowman with the outside or the exterior of your background that you had. So I'm not using a lot of paint, just really looking to give myself a nice base coat, not super thick, because I don't want my paint to, I want to be able to add those shadowy type of marks in a minute. So this again is just kind of giving me a little bit of textural look to it and getting the white paint to be fully realized around the entire snowman. So I'm going to go ahead and put quite a bit in the belly area, because I know that's a big area that of real estate that I had to cover. And then I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around these feet, just getting that white on there to get those little edges to start to get fluffy, like it's nice fresh snow that somebody has put together into this beautiful little snowman. And then once I've got that, and again, don't worry if you go over the edges, that's totally fine. We're going to have a blizzard later anyway. So if you've got white out on the outsides, it's quite all right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel, and I'm going to pick up a very small amount of brown and blue on my brush at the same time. Just a little bit, maybe equal quantities on either corner of your brush. And I'm going to start to dot in. We'll start with the head first. I'm going to start to dot in what would be the shadows around the edges of the head. So this is something that I do with not a lot of paint. And once I've got it on there, I can wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up a little bit of white paint, and get it to blend in with that lighter area in the middle. So you can have a gradual fade into the middle. You can have a real firm line around the edges. It's going to be just a visual preference how dramatic you want these edges to look on your little snowman. And then I'll reload with a little bit of brown, maybe a little bit of blue to get this interior area in through here. And this is one of those things that you might really like yours to be nice and dark in these shadowy areas. Maybe you want yours to just have a little tiny bit of a shadow in, in where these areas are. It's going to be, again, a visual preference on your part. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit in through where these little snow hands would be. And you might not need to work with any additional white. You might be able to just get it to blend without picking up any additional white. So that's going to you'll have to make that judgment call on your own. So this is going to be a shadow at the bottom of these, as well as maybe a shadow of them onto the bottom section. So it's contour shadows as well as the shadows of that object on the object below it. So you can really just have some fun with making these into a very shapely little snowman, or it could be a snowman or a snow woman, whatever you want yours to be. You pick up a little bit more of the brown and the blue, and some areas are going to be more brown, some will be more blue. That's the beauty of using multiple colors on your brush at the same time. You get to kind of have a variety of little areas. I'm just kind of working my way down towards the feet, and of course you can keep tweaking these areas, just getting that darkness to kind of blend in with the neighboring light snow, which would be the center area where it pops out the most at the viewer. And then of course I just keep reloading the corners of my brush with a little bit of that brown and the blue, going all the way around every single one of these objects to make it look like it's got some roundness to it. And again, you can make yours really dark, especially down at the bottom where that would kind of be in the shadows the most. So if you pick up a little bit more of your blue and your brown, that will help to get those to really look like they are down at the bottom of the snowman, and that it is, you know, being shadowed at the bottom of these objects. And you want to make sure that you've well hidden your pencil marks by the time this step is over. So if at any time you feel like you need to add a little bit more white, like I feel like I want to add a little bit more white over on this foot here, so I just washed and dried my brush. Don't feel like you can't wash and dry your brush throughout this process. That's going to be, you know, if you feel like your brush is a little overloaded, just take it, you know, clean it and start fresh again. There's no saying that you have to muscle through with a dirty paintbrush the whole time. It's going to be something that you find is a way that you can control it, and if you need to wash your brush during the process, feel free to do so. And then I'm just going to kind of gradually get this shadowy area to work its way up into my belly, making sure that I've got enough of a darkness transition down at the bottoms of these feet or as they go around the corners. And then again, just kind of fiddle with it until you feel that you've got these areas the darkest, as dark as you want them to be. I definitely want to have these little areas a little dark underneath here. So if you know, get it done and as it's drying, you're like, oh, I want it a little bit darker, just go ahead and add more darkness to it. It doesn't have to be any one sense of lightness or darkness. If you want it to go darker, have it go darker. And then we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've fiddled with your snowman enough and got enough variety and shadow and stuff around all of these edges, you can put this large brush away, take out your small brush or your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the first layer of our hat. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and I'm going to be using just black paint. You could certainly make your hat whatever color you want, but I'd like mine to be a nice dark red, so I'm going to be using a base coat of black paint. So how I'm going to do this is I am going to put a tiny bit of water in some of my black paint, so that way it's nice and thin, and almost like an ink consistency. When I go to do the edges of my hat, I'll have a nice solid line. Having a little bit of fluidity in your black paint allows you to get nice clean lines. So I'm going to have like this big knitted hat on my little snowman here. So I'm going to first do like the rim of the hat. I'm going to have it coming all the way down to this corner where the head meets the shoulder in through here. And it's going to come right about as the head comes down here a little bit. I'm going to have my hat going to right about this vicinity in through here. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to make myself just the outline for the rim of the hat. So I'm going to kind of come up like this and then bring it over into this area down in through here, bringing it out a little bit out in through here, and then just back into the neck right in through here. And then I'm just going to color this section in with black paint. It doesn't have to be perfect where you meet the head itself. If you actually just kind of ruffle it a little bit, that's going to make it look like it's kind of knitted or like of some kind of crocheted kind of soft material, so it will allow it to look a little bit more natural, but you definitely want it to get right up to that head. We can add shadows underneath it later if we feel that it needs that, but I'm just kind of giving mine a little bit of a soft edge so it looks like that the head is kind of snuck under it a little bit. And then once I've got this section of the hat, I'm going to put a couple more tiers to my hat, but I think I want to first tell myself how high I want my hat to go so I don't go out of control. So I'm going to have I'm going to have a little ball on the top of my head and my hat, and I'm going to have that right about in through here. So I know for me, if I don't give myself little markers, sometimes my brush gets out of control and my brain gets out of control and everything just ends up way bigger than I want it to. So that'll give me kind of a stopping point. So I'm going to do another little tier to my hat somewhere in this vicinity like this. And of course, you don't have to have yours exactly the same as mine. I'm just kind of having this fun little knit kind of hat, and then I'll have another little tier up in this direction. You could have a square kind of top hat if you wanted to, or you could have a little cowboy hat, or whatever kind of hat you want on your snowman is totally fine. And then I'm just going to color in these sections. As I color them in, I'll use my thicker black paint so I get a nice solid coat. And you don't really need to do any specific brush stroke because we're going to be doing some details on top of that. And then I'm going to do a little fun pom-pom thing on the top. So I'm gonna, maybe I'll widen this a little bit further. Yeah, and maybe this goes up. I'm gonna have these little like pieces of string pom-pom things kind of just flying out over the edges of my hat. So again, you could have yours whatever way you want. Mine are just kind of shooting out the top. I'm not quite sure how this hat was created, but it looks really fun to me, so I'm digging it. And then we are going to be utilizing, oh, I need the scarf. Hold on, we got to do that little scarf too. So still just black paint. All I need to do is do a skinny little line from shoulder to shoulder in through here. You could, if you wanted to, you could make this scarf go over the shoulder, but I think it's kind of cute that it's, you know, being stuck behind the shoulders a little bit, so you almost can't see, like the shoulders are up and crunched and you can't really see them that way. And then I will just put a couple of the back end of the scarf coming out like this and just flicking it out along the edges, and then I'll do the same thing in through here and then just flicking it out along the edges in through here. And then we're going to use our large brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this medium brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are going to finish the ground. So we're going to be putting a shadow underneath the snowman, and then we're going to put a horizon line where maybe like distant snow field or hill would be, and we'll just put little patches of snow throughout the ground so it'll look different than the sky that we've got going on. So I'm going to start, oh, I don't know if I told you what colors I'm going to use. Black, the gray color, the background, and white will be my colors. So I'm going to start with a very little bit of black paint on my brush, not a lot, and so little that you could even just wipe it off on your, or dab it on your paper towel. I'm going to put a nice dark shadow right underneath my snowman, so it really looks like he is, you know, in the casting a big beautiful shadow on the snowy ground below him. So good amount of black to, or a good darkness right underneath that edge in through there. And then I'm going to pull a little bit underneath the foot. And as I do these feet and the rear end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that shadow out a little bit, so it's not just a line underneath that foot. It actually will make it look like there's more volume to your snowman. I'm going to bring this up a little bit on this side, which will imply that we've got more shadow coming from, you know, a different direction, and it's going to bring it all the way out in through here. So once I've got that on there, I'm going to pick up, without washing my brush, a little bit of my original gray, just so I can make sure that I've got this blended in well enough so it's not just a firm line. So you might find that yours looks great the way that it is and you don't need to add that additional gray paint to it, but if you felt that you needed to blend it out a little bit, you could certainly do that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to add snow to my ground. So I'm going to put very little bit of white paint on my brush. Again, just a little bit on the tip. I don't need a lot. And I'm going to decide where I want this distant land to be. So for me, I'm going to drop it just below these shoulders. So a little bit below the shoulders. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white paint and just kind of give myself an uneven kind of horizon line. Might have to scoot it between your little scarf here, and you'll be able to repaint your scarf later if you need to. And then I'll just kind of make this nice and uneven. And then I'm going to have a couple of additional, maybe thicker areas of snow. Maybe I've got something in through here, just giving me some texture and dimension throughout that snow. And I'm letting myself run out of white paint. So I did not add any more white paint to my brush. I put my heaviest stuff up at the top. I put a couple of heavy little pieces in through here. And now I'm just letting myself run out of paint. And then what I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of my original gray plus a little bit of white. And I'm going to sporadically put in or get this snow that we just put in there to blend out a little bit. So this way we're going to have some light spots and some dark spots throughout our snowy land, and it'll look nice and natural. So that way it's not just one solid color. It'll allow for you to have some nice light areas and dark areas throughout your wintry wonderland, and it'll look like it's had some fresh snow kind of marks on it. You can certainly add a little bit down in this bottom region if you want a little bit lighter than that background color. Just put a touch of white on your brush with that gray, and you can just kind of swirl it around, give yourself some almost like fluffy looking snow areas, and you can certainly have fun with that. We're going to put some trees on here in a minute too, so that's going to add to our wonderful winter wonderland. So once you've got this done, we are going to switch to our medium brush for the next step. So you can put this large brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are painting ourselves some pine trees. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm using are green and black. And I'm not going to have too many trees. You could certainly have as many as you want, or you could have a different style of tree, but I'm just going to go for some nice, simple, wintry type of pine trees. I'm going to have one on the left and I'll have two on the right. You can certainly have them any heights that you want. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to be alternating using black and green. So I'm going to have them kind of skirting out like this. I'll have this one about this high, and it's going to come down to about here. And then I'll have a couple big one. I'll have a big one here and maybe a smaller one here. So I'm going to start with this one over on the left-hand side. I'm going to give myself just a couple of markers so I know how tall I want it, and actually, I'll just give myself place markers. So I'll give myself the trunks of the trees. So I'm going to have this one starting right about here, and I think I'm going to bring it all the way down. I would say maybe just about an inch or so below my line here, and it just nicely works out right with that clump of snow. And I'll do two more on this side. I'm going to do this one maybe starting right about here, and I think this one's going to come, I would say maybe down to about the waist of my cute snowman, so somewhere right about there. And then I'll have another one, I would say a couple inches higher than that one. And this one I think I'm going to have a little bit bigger, maybe coming down to the middle of the belly of my snowman. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a little bit of black, and I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to be going down and out with the brush strokes. They're going to get wider as it goes down towards the base of the tree. So I did black. Now I'm going to pick up some green. My biggest goal here is to just kind of keep the tip of that tree pointy. So that way, to me, it resembles the iconic kind of triangle type of pine trees that are very indigenous to the area where I live in. So you can certainly have yours really tall. You can have them in whatever type of shape that you want, but I'm just kind of putting my branches kind of down and out, making sure that it's a little bit more pointy at the top, and I'm alternating my black and green. I'm not even terribly concerned about getting the entire interior of the tree painted, because I know that I'm going to be having some snow that's going to adorn the edges of my tree by the time I'm done, so I can certainly have it not fully painted, but I am alternating my green and black and trying not to overpaint it so it's not one solid color. And then once I feel like I'm happy with that, making sure that I cover that trunk portion, I just reloaded my brush. I'm going to work on this one here because it's behind this one. So when I do one that's behind the other, the only main thing that I try and do is make one of them lighter or darker than the other. So I'm going to make this back one, I'll make the left side of it a little bit more black, and this front one, the right side of it, a little bit more green, so that way you'll be able to see the difference between the two of them. So I'm going to use quite a bit of black on this back one here, and then when I go to do the front one, I'll use more green. So it's just a quick little tip on how you can show the difference or see the difference between one tree to the next if you've got them sitting in front of one another. I'll put a little bit of green on here just so we can have the authenticity of it being an evergreen tree. And then on the other one, I'm going to put a little bit more green on my brush to start. And as I come down here, I'll try and make this one a little bit more bright because I'm going to have it crossing over this one a bit. And the only thing that I do find when people are doing this style of trees, if you have that center marker, sometimes it ends up looking like feathered hair that is just a split down the middle, and then you have a right side and a left side. So as you're doing this, just be conscious about putting some of these branches down the center of your tree as well, so you cover up that trunk portion, and so the trunk doesn't separate the two sides of the tree from left to right. You want to be able to have that center nice and filled in, and you can see how I'm doing more green on top of that one so we can see the difference. And then I'm just going to kind of keep going until I feel that I've got this filled in enough where I am happy that that it's got some good thickness to it. And then once I've got this all nice and done, I will be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So I'm going to get my trees done here, and then I will wash and dry this brush in preparation for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to do for the next step is I'm putting the red on the hat. So I'm going to be using my medium brush, and I'm going to be using quite a bit of paint because my red is translucent, which means you can see through it. So I know the thicker I use the paint, the more true to the red color it will be. So where I want it to be really, really red, which is going to be the areas that kind of pop out the most, I'm going to be using a lot of paint on my brush. And the areas where I want it to dip in, like right around the head, maybe in these creases, I'll be using less red paint. So I'll show you how I'm going to do it. So, and I might use a little black too, but probably mostly red. So what I'm going to do is I'm loading my brush with a good amount of red paint, and I'm going to kind of designate where I want my highlighted areas to be. So I definitely want a bunch of red paint in through here. I want a bunch on this upper region in through here. I'm going to want a bunch along this edge in through here. And I'm not really doing a special brush stroke, just kind of getting it on here right now so I can understand where I'm going to want those highlights. I've got my scarf to contend with, so I definitely want to have a good amount on here, especially on the top side, bringing some in through these little wispy pieces in through here. And then what I'm gonna, I got my top little ball. I wanna have a good amount up in through here. And then I want a lot of streaks in through this little pom-pom. So while this is kind of just sitting for a minute, I'm gonna just put a whole bunch of thick red streaks up in my pom-pom. And you can see I'm not coloring the whole thing. I'm leaving some of that black in there so it allows for diversity and the dimension to be shown throughout the throughout that area. So now that I've got my highlighted areas designated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of rubbing and pulling this red paint into the darkness. So I didn't wash my brush. I want it to kind of look like it's knitted, so it almost has like rows of redness to it. So I'm just kind of pulling this red paint in these little almost stripes going into the darkness. Just bringing this red all the way up to the top where I want it to be. I'm going to do the same thing for this area in through here, just pulling this red down in these almost like little curved streaks. So that's going to give the implication that it might be knitted or something like that. And then up and through here, just bringing this red a little bit higher in through there, and then I can pull it down in these little kind of streaks that are going to give it an illusion of being like a little bit of a knit hat. And then up and through here, you can just kind of rub this around. We're going to have snow on this little piece up here, so that's not going to be terribly important. Put a little bit of red in the scarf down in through here. And then if you feel you need to, you can certainly come back to these brighter areas and add a little bit more thickness. This paint is going to get so much darker when it dries. So you might find as you go through this process that you actually want to let it sit for a little while, see if it turns out as red as you had hoped it would be. And once it's dry, if you need to or want to add another layer to it, you can certainly go right ahead and do that. But I'm thinking that this is looking pretty good. I'll probably wait for mine to dry as well to see if I want to add another layer to it, but that'll be a personal judgment call on your part. And then once you've got this all nice and done, we are going to be switching to our small brush for the next step. So you can get the red on your hat, any more details down in through here if you felt like you needed to do any more thick little streaks to get the vibrancy in the scarf, and then you can wash and dry this medium, or put the medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our facial features and put a couple little buttons on our snowman. So I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are red, white, orange, and black. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be putting on a couple of rosy cheeks first, and then we'll build all of our details around that. So how I'm going to put some rosy cheeks on there is I'm going to create a light pink color. So I'm going to take a tiny bit of red paint and mix it in with some of my white paint. I don't need it to be super dark. I'm just looking for a nice pale little pink color. And once I've got that, I'm going to decide where I want it to go. I want my snowman to look like it's kind of tipped a little bit and looking up into that direction. So I'm going to have its cheeks somewhere in right about here and here. And I don't just want it to look like a pink circle. So once I've kind of established where I want it to go, I'm going to start picking up white paint with the remnants of that pink on my brush, and I can get this pink to blend out into the neighboring snow face. So you can have these as light as you want or as dark as you want. You can just kind of keep maneuvering that white around the edges so it makes it look nice and soft. And of course, if you go too too dark, just kind of keep building that white on top of it, and it will eventually just get to a nice light rosy color. So I'm just going to kind of keep playing with mine, especially around the edges, because I just want it to look like it's all cold and just got those rosy, I was just playing outside kind of cheeks, like I'm guilty of having every now and again. But you can certainly, again, make yours as light or as dark as you want them to be. We're going to have a big cute nose in front of there as well in a minute. So this is just kind of letting the coldness show itself on top of the face. So while these cheeks are kind of drying, I'm going to go ahead and put some buttons on my on the chest of my little snow person here, but just making sure I've got this pink as soft as I want it. I think that's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and move to my buttons. So I'm just going to wash and dry my brush, put a little bit of black paint on my brush. I'm just having a couple of buttons, but you could have you could put clothing on, you could put a little vest on, you could really do whatever you want, but I'm just going to do a couple of little circular black buttons like this, and then I will put a little either reflection or a little piece of snow on top of them. So I'm going to just wash and dry my brush, pick up a little bit of white paint, give myself a little kind of swishy, you know, either a highlight or some snow or something on the top of it. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush again, and I'm going to put the my mouth, a shadow where I'm going to underneath where my carrot is going to stick in, and the shape of my eyes and my eyebrows on. So I'm going to be using watered down black paint with my small brush, and you can really kind of formulate this face to be whatever kind of cuteness that you want, but I know I've designated kind of my cheeks to be here, so I'm going to have my carrot nose kind of coming out from, we'll say, right about in through here. So for my carrot nose, I'm just going to put a little kind of arcing line for the shadowy part that's going to be as it sticks into the face. And then for my mouth, I'm going to have this kind of coming in this little cute smirky type of smile. So I am not pressing hard with my brush. You could put little dots if you wanted this to look like little pebbles, or you could really make this mouth into whatever you want. I'm just doing a little skinny line with these little cute cheeks on the edges, and I'm going to go ahead and do where I want my eyes to be. So I'm going to do these little curved lines that are going to imply the top portion of the cheek. So I'm going to have one of them is going to be in this vicinity, somewhere in through here, and then I'm going to have the other one, maybe this one's going to be in this vicinity, like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my eyes on top. My right eye could, in essence, be a little bit smaller than the left eye, because to me it's turned a little bit, so I might make this one a little bit smaller. I'm doing these tall kind of arcing oval type of shapes for the eye in through there, and then I'll do the eyeball part looking up. Just going to color that in with some black paint like that, and then I'll go ahead. Oops, I just kind of smudged my button a little bit here. That's what happens when you're working with wet paint. You tend to get it on your hands, you get it all over, so just be conscious of where where my hand is setting, I guess, which I just smudged my mouth. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do this one over here. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself a cute little arc like this on both sides. And of course, your eyes again could be of a different style than mine. You could have yours looking in a different way. I just want my little snowman to look all curious and cute. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some eyebrows. I want my eyebrows to be really high, so I'm going to put them really close to my hat. And I'm just going to have one over in this direction, and then I'll go ahead and put the other one is going to be, I'm going to call this one maybe somewhere in here. Sorry if my hand is in the way. I'm trying to keep it out of the way, but when I do these little details, it's like my brush has to go in exactly where I want it to. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush because I want to put my carrot nose on. But my carrot nose I'm going to be doing with orange paint, so you definitely don't want to have black paint on your brush when you do the orange carrot nose. So I'm just putting a little bit of orange on my brush. Going to decide how far out I want this to go. So I'm going to have mine kind of come in right underneath my eyeball in through here. And you can have your carrot whatever kind of shape you want. I'm going to have mine coming right down to this black. And it's going to be kind of fun and skinny on the end and just kind of maybe have a little bit of shape in through here. It's just a cute little, kind of like a button nose, only a carrot nose. So you can have yours as, you know, as large or as small as you want. You can, carrots come in all different sizes as well. So I'm going to put some orange on there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some white paint to give it either a highlight or some snow or something that gives it a little bit of shape. So I didn't wash my brush, I just picked up a little bit of white paint, and I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little kind of streak of white in through here. And if you wanted to blend it out, you certainly could. And then we're going to be utilizing our big brush for the next step. So once you've got your adorable face on here, you can certainly tweak it all you want, and then you can put your small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. So I'm gonna use my large brush, and I'm gonna be using white paint. So I'm gonna have snow on my hat, snow on my trees. I'm gonna have a big blizzard snow all throughout the sky. And then if I wanna put more on the ground, I can certainly do that too. So I'm gonna start with my trees, and for me, I like using these big bristle brushes because I can have like clumps of snow and it looks pretty natural, but sometimes they will splay out a little bit too much for me. So what I like to do is I'll take my brush and squish it in my paint on the side of my palette, and that will bring my bristles together, which will allow me more control as to where I'm putting my snow. So I'm going to just kind of tap it along my tree. I don't necessarily want to paint the entire thing with the white paint, but I definitely want it to look like there's some snow sitting on some of these branches, and, you know, definitely making it look like it's really nice and wintry. And I'm using kind of a diagonal type of push to my brush, so I can have it with these branches kind of laying down, and that of course looks to me reminiscent of this style of tree. If you feel like you want to put a little bit more on the ground underneath, feel free to do so. I'm going to move on to my other trees. I'm going to do my back one first. So when I do my back one, I'm really mindful of this tree right here. So I want it to kind of still look like it is in behind it. So I'm not going to put a ton of snow right in that area to just provide a little illusion that when I get to this one, I can see the edge to this front tree. So again, one of my primary goals is to keep the tips of these trees nice and pointy. So as I go along, I definitely started at the top because to me that's the place that would have the most snow accumulated on a tree, and I'm bringing some of it out towards those edges and then just bringing it down along towards the bottom. And again, being mindful not to just go left and right, but to also account for some of the snow in the center branches as well. And then as I go along this right hand side, I can do it pretty heavy along the edges of this one. That will make it look like it's in front of the one behind it. And then again, if I felt like I wanted to put any extra little snow on the ground underneath, I could certainly do that as well. I'm going to go ahead and move on to my hat and my scarf. So he's looking up that way, so I feel like the head is tilted and it would accumulate the most amount of snow right in through here. So that's where I'm going to put the most amount of snow. So I'm going to kind of tap it in along these edges pretty heavy at the top, and then just kind of loosely tap it as it's going away from that particular section. So tapping it in pretty darn heavy up in through here. And as I'm tapping it out, I'm hardly touching the canvas at all. I'm just really using a light touch to get these little pieces of snow along the edge of that hat. Gonna do the same thing up in this little corner, just using the corner of my brush, letting that snow kind of sit up on the corner of the hat. Maybe there's a little on this little pom-pom part. Maybe there's some that has kind of sat or is sitting on the edges of these little pieces in through here. So have fun with where you want this snow to sit. It's, you know, to me, it would just kind of sit on the edge that's the top or the outside edges, but you can certainly have fun with that. I'm going to put a little bit on my scarf as well. So again, just kind of going top side of the scarf to put some snow on there, because to me, that's where it would sit, and maybe it would sit a little bit on these little fringes out in through here. And then I get to let it snow everywhere else. You could certainly, you know, if you wanted some in the ground, put some more in the ground if you wanted to. So for me, letting it snow in the sky, I don't want a ton of paint on my brush. So I'm gonna wipe it off on my paper towel. So I really have hardly any on here. And then this is gonna give me those like soft kind of thousand little dots of really soft snow. You could sit and flick it if you wanted to, but this is for me a kind of quick way to get a blizzard going on my winter canvases. But the trick is to not have a lot of paint on your brush. And I also don't want it to look like I'm painting around these objects. So the snowman in particular and the trees in particular. So just make sure when you get close to them that you definitely, you know, put some snow near them, and even touching them if it is a snowstorm. It would make sense if there's snow in front of your hat and in front of your trees. So don't feel like you can't put snow in front of them. I mean, it's a snowstorm, so there'd be snow everywhere. But I know that for me, I tend to put the snow heavier at the top of the canvas, almost as if, you know, that's where it's coming from. So to me, it would look the most concentrated coming out of there. But that's going to be a personal preference on your part. So I'm definitely just kind of keep dotting away in through here, and I'll probably go a little bit heavier with or harder with my brush. You could obviously put more paint on your brush if you wanted to. You could, of course, like I said, make it snow in front of everywhere if you wanted to. If you wanted to look like there's, you know, little snowflakes flying around the whole thing. And if you wanted some extra bright ones, I just put a teeny tiny bit more of the white paint, and you can really just kind of tap in some extra bright ones if you wanted to. Or you could do that other technique that I was talking about, which is putting a little bit of water plus white paint on your brush, and you can flick it like this. This will give you thousands of little tiny, teeny tiny snowflakes, and that would make it look like, you know, you've got a million little snowflakes everywhere. And then we have one last little step left, but you get the whole room messy when you do it this way. We have one little tiny step left to go, and it's going to be with our small brush. So once you've got all of your snow everywhere on your painting that you want it to be, you can put this large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I think I'm going bottom left on this one with black paint. I'm going to sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you would like for your identifying mark to be. It's your painting. You sign it however you would like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself an adorable snow person, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.